Great, so thanks for coming. This is a Wild Gresham event put on by the City of Gresham and Johnson Creek Watershed Council. And I am Katie Holzer. I'm Watershed Scientist here at the City of Gresham, and I'm also on the board of the Johnson Creek Watershed Council.
I'm Caz Zyvatkauskas. I was on the board of the Johnson Creek Watershed Council. I'm a resident of Gresham and I live right on Johnson Creek, and that's what made me get involved with the Watershed Council and with animal photography. I would call the council and say, look, I've just seen this otters on the creek, and they said, oh, that's really great, did you get a photo? So I got myself a bigger lens, a 7300, and started capturing wildlife and amazed myself at how much there was. And that started amazing others, and we found species that we didn't even know existed. And I'll let you know this before we start. Every animal that you see here is within 1 mile of where we're sitting. So
yeah, so this isn't like way out on the fringes out by the mountain. This is like in downtown Gresham. We're lucky enough to see all of this stuff. So what we're going to be doing today is showing pictures and videos that Caz has taken, and also giving you a little bit of context about what is in the city in terms of habitat. So here's an aerial map of the city. We're about where that little yellow star is right there. So you can see, there's a lot of roads, there's a lot of building, there's a lot of gray in there. But there's also a lot of green, especially down in the south. We have what we call the East Buttes. There's a lot of forest out there. There's a lot of, there's some open fields and meadows. And a big part, one of the things that makes Gresham really special is all of this. We have all of these streams all throughout the city. A lot of cities have taken those streams and just put them underground in a pipe. And as you might imagine, a lot of wildlife can't live in a pipe that would otherwise be able to live by a stream. So especially like if you go to the larger city to our west that I will leave unnamed, almost all of their streams are in a pipe and not much can live there. And so we're really amazingly fortunate that in Gresham, our streams are all on the surface and they're gonna stay that way into the foreseeable future. Those are really important places for wildlife to live. But we are in a city, and these aren't just entirely natural streams without any human influence. One of the big influences we have is runoff. So when it's raining really hard on all of these streets and roofs, that water, instead of soaking into the ground like it would if you're out in a forest or in a field, it runs straight off there because it can't soak through the pavement and goes down into the storm drain. So can anyone take a guess of where that water goes after it goes into the storm drain? Where does it go from there?
Sewers?
The sewers, cool. And where do the sewers empty out into?
The river? The lakes or the streams?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people think that when water goes down this drain, it goes to the wastewater treatment plant, it gets cleaned up. That's not what happens. These grates usually go directly into a stream, to the nearest stream, because the reason that these grates were built and these pipes were built was to get water off the road as quickly as possible. So that the roads don't flood and cars can drive. They're not there to protect our streams, they're there to get water off the road for people to drive. So here's an example. This is Butler Creek in Gresham. It's raining on these houses and on the roads, and the water's going down into a grate, and there's where the pipe comes out. The pipe just goes directly down to this little creek right here. You can see some of the pollution that's washed off of the road. And you can see it's not getting any treatment at all. It's not getting cleaned up. It's flowing right in this little side creek and straight into Butler Creek right here. It then flows into Johnson Creek, then flows into the Willamette River, then flows into the Columbia River, then flows into the Pacific Ocean. So these are all connected. So if there's some oil dripping out of your car, there's a cigarette butt on the ground, that's going to wash down, wash into the grate, and wash directly into these streams. And a lot of times when I tell people that and they realize, oh, okay, well, it washes in there, and they think, well, it doesn't really matter. This is just an urban stream. It doesn't have much living in there anyway. What does it matter? It's probably all dead. We're in a city, right? So that's one of the amazing things that all these photos that Caz has taken has helped us understand, because we might not see a lot of the wildlife that's living in the city because it might hide from us and we might not get to see it very often. So we might think, oh, it's dead. Nothing lives there anyway. So in terms of what the stormwater looks like, I showed you this picture with the city and all the streams. In the city, what it really looks like is this. All these green lines are the stormwater pipes. And so that's really all of the streams start everywhere you are. Every neighborhood is the start of a stream. Every road is the start of a stream because that water all goes directly into it. So this is really what our urban streams look like. So you might say, who lives there? This is a video that Caz took. Is this in Johnson Creek?
Yep, that's in Johnson Creek.
And you can see this raccoon going around. What do you think she's doing?
Looking for crayfish.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, looking for crayfish.
They're pretty good at finding them too.
And if you look closely, you can actually tell that this is a nursing female. So this is a mother who's given birth recently. Her young are nearby, and so she's trying to go get some food so that she has enough milk to feed them. So this raccoon isn't just moving through here. She's obviously feeding, and she has a family. She's set up her life here. She lives in the middle of the city. This isn't just somewhere she's passing by. And that's going to be a theme that we're seeing with a lot of these animals. They're not just coming through here. This is their actual home where they spend their entire lives. So we're going to break this up into 4 sort of groups of animals that we're going to talk about. And the first will be amphibians and reptiles. So we'll talk about crustaceans and fish, and then birds and mammals. So for the next big chunk, Caz is going to tell you some cool stories about the stuff she's seen, and I'll interject some information too.
Okay, well, yep, that one there, that'd be your red-legged frog on the cover. That's one of the showcase frogs here, because I believe they're not endangered, but they're
Yeah,
species of
a
concern.
species of conservation concern. And some of the research that we've done around here has shown that our urban stormwater ponds in the cities are some of the most important habitat for them in their entire range. So they're living here, they're actually doing better here in the city than in most of the places that they live, and in these places that we're building.
And everybody thinks, oh yeah, frog, pond, that's great, but these red-legged frogs live right on the edge of the creek. So I've seen them right in the creek, right on the edge, feeding there, hanging out there, and they coexist with the bullfrogs.
And you can see she's got a really big belly there too. She's all full of eggs she's about to go lay.
There's the neighbor of the red-legged, the bullfrog. Excellent swimmers. Although they won't grow as big apparently in the creek as they will in a pond because they're fighting all the time that current coming down there. I saw my first bullfrog this year only a couple of days ago. It's finally starting to get warm enough they figure, all right, it's good. Now this little creature is a juvenile Oregon Slender, and they are on the official species of concern. It's a rare salamander. That's its defensive posture. That one is about, I've used a macro lens to shoot that. That's about the size of my baby fingernail, maybe a tiny bit bigger. And I happened to cross those things one day. I signed up there was an ad in the local Gresham newspaper. Anybody like amphibians? I said, yes, I love amphibians. I found some tadpoles, come and look. And the lady came down there, Laura Goody, on at the time, and she said, oh, those are bullfrog tadpoles, kill them. Oh, great, for an amphibian lover. It was kind of a letdown, so I'm gardening, I lift up a pot, and I see this similar creature to that underneath, and I go, well, that's something. I call her and I say, I think I've got something. We'll take a picture, again, with the picture. So I take a picture, send it to her. She goes, I think that's an Oregon Slender. I said, well, there's a lot of them. I'll put some in a jar, come over. And she ID'd them as Oregon Slenders, and that sent me off on building a salamander sanctuary in our backyard.
And these salamanders were only known to live in old-growth forests up in the Cascades until a couple years ago when they were found in Gresham. And once we started looking for them and knew that they might be here, we're finding them all over the place, all throughout the city. And there are dozens living in a cinder block wall in Caz's yard. So old-growth forest and cinder block wall in the middle of the city. Yeah.
So would you say that the biologists didn't know that they were in town because they legitimately thought they weren't here, or because they just weren't looking?
Well, yeah. They assumed they couldn't be here because they thought they needed old-growth forests, and they just weren't looking for them. Exactly. So once you know what to look for and have the idea to even start looking, you see a lot more. For example, some of the places that you've found fish in the city, right? It just looks like a tiny little ditch. You think nothing could possibly be there, and then you looked for it and you find juvenile trout and salmon in these little ditches.
And here they are actually in the cinder block. Gang of
Primo
three.
habitat.
There's a red-legged frog. This one is actually part of a series of shots that I did after the big storm we had, 2015, when it flooded. And I saw this frog. The creek had come by, it scoured the edge of the creek. It's just rocks, all the grass and vegetation had gone. And this frog was sitting there. I thought, oh my gosh, it looks so skinny, it needs some food. I took a worm, I take the worm right up to the frog, I put it in front of the frog, and it eats it. I went, oh my gosh, okay, don't go anywhere. Go get your camera. So I get the camera, set it up, and I set it on, speed shoot. And I get shots of this guy going, grabbing it, and not the classic, stick out the tongue. It actually lunged for it, grabbed it, and then pulled it up, as you can see. And
And then
that's it right there.
they use their eyes to swallow, so their eyes go down into their head. They push through the roof of their mouth, and that pushes the food back. So its eyes are halfway in its head right now.
yeah, you kind of see that.
Oh wow, that's it.
Yeah.
All frogs?
All frogs do that. Yep. Yeah, they have holes through the roof of their mouth where their eyes go up and down to swallow.
I knew that.
There's their eggs. This egg mass is in what we call a backwater right off the Springwater Trail just by Dowsett Lane. And it looks, I've seen people throw all kinds of stuff in there, from spent hot tubs to beer bottles. But
Yeah, and these egg masses can be this big, this jelly with tiny little embryos inside.
yeah.
Pretty cool.
What time of year do you see those? Or
So these will be in the late winter and early spring.
There's some of them hatched out. Those are froglets, so they're about the size of my thumb. They're the juvenile red-leggeds. There's the Northwestern salamander.
It's big. It's like
It's
this big.
That's
It's
big,
huge
yeah.
and beefy.
I couldn't believe it when I first saw that thing.
The
And-
only adult I've ever seen of this species was under a piece of plywood in Caz's yard. That's all it needed was some cover and moisture.
Yeah. And that's their egg mass right there. They lay right like red-legged frogs. You frequently see them together, and that one I got just as the sunlight was coming through. You could see they're turning into little efts.
So those tiny little things on the inside are embryos that were round when they were laid, like a chicken egg, and then they start to turn into like a little tadpole.
Is that the one that's the hard egg mass?
This one's really hard. You could put your hand under it and lift it up out of the water, and it would keep the same shape. And I could like toss it to you, and it would still be fine.
The red-legged frog eggs that drip
Yeah,
over
it
your
would
hand.
just dribble out. One of these I found, it had been out of the water for almost a month, and it had snowed and frozen around it, and the developing embryos were still fine swimming around. They hatched out.
Wow.
So I think that's one of the reasons that that's so firm, is for places that dry up and might flood again.
There it is, hatched out. That's
Things like this big.
probably, yeah. Oh yeah, small. But that's with the macro lens. It looks big. That's probably about a week old.
So what's with the little wing-looking thing?
Those are its gills, because they're
Yeah.
aquatic for the first year to 2 years of their lives. So they live entirely in the water. If you have a pond and you're worried about mosquito larvae, you put those things in, OMG. They're like mad for that stuff.
Oh, that's
So those are like, little lungs sticking out there grabbing the oxygen out. And that dark purple part up near the front, that's its heart. You can see right through because it has translucent skin, and then you can see its intestines down lower.
Oh, wow.
And then those are little snail eggs, right?
Yeah, those are snail eggs on the side of the tank.
I used to see those often on the Springwater Trail in puddles, but
Yeah,
don't see as much anymore.
really.
I know,
Interesting.
that's a drag. What part of the Springwater Trail?
Kind of like near Main City Park.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I saw some tadpoles, and there's a puddle right where the Springwater goes into Main City Park. It comes out on the trail, and I saw a few hundred tadpoles in there the other day when I was there.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
But it was drying up quickly. It was like, oh no. So hopefully the rain today helped it out a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a classic long-toed salamander.
These will lay, like, when like a truck drives through a field and leaves a little tire rut and it fills up with water, you'll find these breeding in there, laying their eggs and developing.
And there's the classic Ensafina Salamander. I see them all over the place. I've got one outside I brought for people want to.
So yeah, we have it in a little container we can look at when we leave. And where do they lay their eggs?
I'm not sure because I've never seen.
So they lay right on land. They never go to water their whole life. So these and the slender salamanders, they stay right in the rocks and the logs and the cinder block walls and lay their eggs right there. They might never move from under one log their whole life.
Wow. And how long is their lifespan approximately?
We have no idea. It's really hard to study that. I tried to study that as part of my dissertation. It was really hard. Guessing a few years? I don't know. Somewhere between 1 and 50 years is my guess.
So that means that the eggs then are not aquatic, so they're
Correct.
it's kind of similar to gelatinous, kind of see through them.
Yeah.
The salamander will hatch and have the air breathing gills.
Exactly.
like
So
lungs.
they actually go through their aquatic stage with the gills inside the egg, and they go through metamorphosis before they hatch out. But they have to be in a really moist place, so it's under rocks and logs and leaves and stuff. Because if they don't have a hard shell like a reptile does on their egg or a bird. But you can see you can actually see her eggs inside of her there because she has some translucent skin. So you can see little yellow circles.
There's a turtle similar to the one that Katie brought in out there, and that I found swimming in the creek. It was really very tentative. As soon as I went out there, it darted away, but I managed to shoot through a break in the wall and get the camera on. You can see it's looking. It's just about to take off, but they call it invasive, but
It's a non-native species.
non-native. Right?
So this is probably here because someone released their pet here, or it could be the offspring of someone who released a pet there. And we usually only see them in urban areas, though. They're not spreading very much outside of urban areas. And some studies that I've been part of show that they're actually not a very good competitor against other turtles. The other turtles are stronger and more aggressive, but these are much more tolerant of humans. And so where there's a lot of human disturbance, the other turtles will dive down into the water or go away, and these will stay around more. And so they're doing fairly well in cities, but not outside of them.
I don't know if it's the same one, but this year I took a picture of one that was like 2 times the size. They put it in the show.
Where did you say they would be around? Because I've never seen them around here.
I've seen it at Main City Park, you know, the little bridge, just
Yeah.
standing on the bridge there, looking down.
So just in the creek.
I saw it right in the creek there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Do they eat plants?
They eat some aquatic vegetation, and then they eat little fish.
Or they-
Is their main food
you know,
source.
salmon, steelhead, all the rares.
Yep.
This was a garter snake that I shot up in a fern. It was sunning. I guess it was sunning itself. But you know, you always expect to see them slithering on the ground, and there was this one right up there. Just
That's a great shot.
Yeah. It's beautiful. All right.
yeah, it brings us to the.
Crustaceans and fish down in the water.
The signal crayfish is the native crayfish, so it's not invasive.
I don't know anything about crayfish.
But they will eat non-native foods, as
There
you
we go.
can see. Watermelon, rind.
These are, of all the animals that we're showing you today, these are the ones that I could say, I bet you could go out right now and find one within 5 minutes. If you go out to Fairview Creek or Johnson Creek, or any of the tributaries of them, within 5 minutes if you're looking, there are crayfish everywhere. Sometimes I saw 12 in an area this big once. They're all like fighting with each other. So these are a really important food source. You see all sorts of birds eating these and the raccoons. So yeah, lots of crayfish in the creek. And I've seen people catching and eating them as well.
Yeah, I did that too once.
Yeah?
Really?
Yeah.
You ate them?
Not around,
Delicacy or something.
well, we cooked it.
Right, yeah.
But not much meat.
Yeah. So here's a video.
We got a lot of them, like, at a different campsite.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, see if you can tell what it's eating here. This one has something in its claws.
Is that a fish?
It's another crayfish, yeah. So this is a big crayfish that is eating a little crayfish. So there's so many of them that they even eat each other.
Yeah. And why not? If your neighbor tastes good. These, I found out were suckerfish. When I first saw them, someone was visiting and they said, "Oh, there's trout. There's a bunch of trout there." And I went down there, rushed with the camera, click, click, and I called them up on the screen. I realized, oh, no, those are not trout.
How big do these get?
That big one there, that was about this long.
How big were the ones that you were finding?
Yeah, I was thinking just about that big too.
Well, yeah.
Me and my coworker went out and we're doing a steelhead lamprey survey with Johnson Creek with these Mallards too.
That was in the morning. In the afternoon, I saw blue heron downstream.
Oh wow. You did? Did you take the whole thing?
Yeah, it took the whole thing. It took them a while to eat it, but
That's huge.
that's one of the bottom feeders, the sculpin.
This is another one that maybe I could say I'm pretty sure you'll find one of these in maybe more like 10 minutes than 5 minutes, but these are all over in the creeks too, which is really cool.
These also, they're, food provider. They provide food for tons of other.
Big schools of
Another
these.
Here we go. There's proof that they survived the first year. I think that's about, I don't know, Ron, how old would you? It's hard to judge the age of these things.
Yeah, that's obviously less than a year old.
Yeah.
And some sort of trout, right?
I think it's a rainbow trout. The spots on the dorsal thing there. I think it's indicated. So, rainbow. Or I guess we.
We'll show this map that Roy has contributed to. So this is a map of Johnson Creek. So over on the left, that blue thing is the Willamette River going up to the Columbia. And then these lines coming over are all of Johnson Creek and all the little tributaries coming off of them. And there was a fish survey done a few years ago that Roy participated in to try to see, what kind of fish are in here. It's hard to see them. They're not walking around on land. And these lines are showing where they found some different species of salmon and trout. So the Chinook, look, there's Chinook salmon up in Johnson Creek. They don't quite make it to Gresham. They were only found up through Portland. But then coho salmon, look at that, all the way through Gresham, coming out the other side to Boring. And then steelhead or rainbow trout, pretty much the whole length of the entire creek. And then cutthroat trout were even in all the tiny little tributaries around. Those were ones where they were finding them in these little ditches that you didn't even realize were connected to a creek and you didn't think could possibly have anything in them. So these were pretty amazing findings that pretty much anywhere you guys looked, you found native fish, and most of those places even had trout in them. So this was a huge eye-opener for all of us to say, this is not dead. There's a lot fewer of them than there used to be. We're not in the days when there are, thousands, tens of thousands coming up here, but there are some. And so if we can help create the right conditions for them, they can come back, and there can be thousands and tens of thousands again.
This is, I had just been to a presentation on Pacific lamprey, so I was pretty excited when I saw this thing squiggling around. I went, oh wow, yeah, get the underwater camera, take some shots of it. I put it up on the Facebook page and I say, look, a Pacific lamprey. Then someone else goes, oh, about that. Have you noticed that it's an adult, but the size of the snails indicate that it's a very small lamprey. So that is probably a Western Brook lamprey, which we didn't even know were in the creek.
Are they like eels?
They're not closely related to eels, but I don't know. Do you know more about lamprey? I know they're really cool, but
Yeah, they have they're really old fish, and so they kind of predate the dinosaurs. They have a backbone, but it's a backbone made of cartilage like a shark. And then they have that mouth structure, which is it's like a jawless fish, but they have I think it's called a scrollus. It's basically a round
it's like
mouth.
this circle mouth with all the teeth.
And
It's really
they
gross.
live year-round in the creek. And some, I guess the Pacific ones are parasitic, but then I think these are filter feeders, little ones.
So the big ones you'll see, they'll actually attach to the big salmon when they're out in the ocean and drink the blood out there. And Ashlyn just did some lamprey surveys. Did you find any lampreys in Gresham?
Yeah, we found 2 reds with 2 lampreys swimming in each one, and then we found 4 live ones too. And I was just talking with Katie from Johnson Creek, and I think they're Brook. The reds seem like larger, like a Pacific.
So that's the little nest they make to lay their eggs in.
Yeah, but then themselves are about hand size that we saw, which is indicative. of the
Yeah,
brook.
yeah, that's about how that one was, like about that long.
Yeah.
And they're a really important source for the native human communities around here, source of food. So it's been a big partnership with the Johnson Creek Watershed Council is working with a group called Wisdom of the Elders of native people who are helping track and figure out where the lampreys are going and how they're doing.
Did you say they're not related to eels?
Not closely related.
Oh, okay, I thought they were eels.
I remember you were just forwarding me a story where the Bull Run used to have a problem with lamprey because there were so many of them that sometimes they'd get sucked up in the pipes and they'd be like coming out of people's faucets and stuff.
no!
Yeah, but this was like in the 60s or something. We saw this news article, and so they were trying to kill all the lamprey.
Oh.
We've shifted a little bit. All right, so now we're moving into the birds, and when we do the birds, since people tend to know more about birds than amphibians or fish, we're going to show the picture first, and we're going to cover the name it is, and I want you to yell out what type of bird you think it might be. So how about this one first?
Oh.
It's an owl. What kind of owl?
Yeah, what kind of owl? Come on.
Spotted.
Looks like he's got.
Cute.
Very cute. It's a juvenile, so that makes it harder.
Yeah, it was hard to ID this one because it was a juvenile.
Oh, I don't say that. Oh, but yeah, so go for it. No, say it because I didn't do the thing.
Screech owl.
Yeah, so this is a juvenile screech owl. Those big, beautiful eyes. All right, this one.
It's a stellar J, isn't it?
Yeah, a kingfisher. This is a belted kingfisher. It looks a lot like a Stellar's jay because it has a crest. But this one, the Stellar's jay doesn't have any white on it. I think you have a picture later of one.
I think I do, yeah.
These I often hear before I see. If you start to recognize what they sound like, you can look up what they sound like. They're really loud, and you hear that, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a kingfisher somewhere. And then you look, and this little bird's going up and sitting. And then if you watch, it might dive down and grab a fish.
Yeah, I got some shots of it taking fish out of the water, but they're not really clear. It's just more like documenting that's what they do.
So you want to make a sound for us so we can.
No,
Yeah.
it's kind of a scratchy coo 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 coo, but
It's like one note repeated.
yeah, almost like a yeah.
I haven't practiced my.
Oh, no, next presentation we'll be ready.
I can do frog calls. I can impersonate those. All right, how about this one? Yeah,
I've
great
seen
blue
those
heron.
at Mount Hood Community College Park.
Yeah, these are huge. This one, actually, the last 3 days I've been here, I've seen, when I'm just going from my office to the parking lot here, I've seen one of these swoop really low over the parking lot and land. There's a little stormwater pond that collects the stormwater off of that whole civic business park, whatever it is over there. All the stormwater from the parking lot runs into this pond, and this heron hangs out there and gets food out of the pond.
That one's got a crawdad.
Yeah. There's another one flying off.
Wait, Katie, what did they eat in the pond?
I don't know. I was wondering that.
Oh, okay.
There might be some sort of little fish in there.
They did, yeah, well, they
Frogs. There are definitely frogs in there.
Yeah, I've got shots of them eating a frog. Like
Okay.
February, I thought, no frogs. That thing, I saw it on one side of the creek, and it just locked, and it walked over to the other side of the creek slowly, then pew, lunged in like a samurai swordsman. It just grabbed this frog
Wow.
and then walked back with this big red, I could see the red legs hanging out of its mouth. I thought, oh, I guess frogs are moving around. Just he spotted it.
When I was at the college, I saw someone fish and then toss the fish back into the river, and
Uh-huh.
it before it touched the river, it ate the fish.
Oh, that's
there.
awesome.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, that's cool.
All right, how about this one? Yeah, it's a type of duck. This is a female common merganser.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, so usually female birds are usually pretty drab looking and brown because they need to hide on the nest and not get eaten. And the female mergansers are pretty awesome. They have this wild, mohawk sticking out in the back. And they swim through the rapids. And so mallards that you're used to seeing, those just eat algae and aquatic plants, and you'll just see them tipping upside down and eating that. But these are fishers. They dive into the water, they swim around really fast, they have razor sharp bills, and they grab little fish and eat them.
I don't know why they call them common, because they don't look very common to me.
All right, how about these? It's another type of Merganser. These are called the hooded Mergansers. So the male's on the left and the female on the right. And so here's a female close up.
I know.
Oh, oops, that was backwards. And that's the male when he puts his crest out. It's pretty impressive.
This
Right.
was not the. These are wood ducks. I said it. Ah, no.
What is a wood duck?
Okay, never mind. I got carried away.
Yeah, there are a lot of these in the city. If you go out to Butler Creek, you'll see, I think I saw like 20 pairs of wood ducks this last year out in Butler Creek.
The wood duck is the one that makes the nest in the tree holes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they nest in. That's why they call them wood ducks. I've seen them fly up to the balcony and like rest there, and flying to oak trees really high up.
And the city's put out some wood duck nesting boxes because there aren't many big old trees, anymore that hadn't been cut down. And I think the wood duck, the city puts out all sorts of different nest boxes for all sorts of different species. And I think the wood duck ones are the ones that pretty much always have one nesting in it. So
Wow,
that's a big
that's-
success.
That's really nice to
Where
know.
they can live here, they're just really limited by a place to lay their eggs. So. You know this one? Yeah. Mallard. And her ducklings. This is really interesting. I had no idea they did this.
Yeah, they eat acorns. So in the fall, when there's a big oak tree right across from us, it starts dropping acorns. The wood ducks do it too. I didn't get pictures of them, but the mallards, they'll even dive down and get the acorn, toss it up until it's just right, and then swallow it whole.
All right, any guesses what these are young of?
Yeah, like the ones we just saw.
They're a little, I'll give you a clue, they're a little bit bigger than the ones we just saw. Like 50% bigger probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, these are Canada goose goslings. There's the mom. Alright, how about this one? Moving on to
It's a
raptors.
hawk.
Yeah, it's a type of hawk.
Osprey.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's
It's an
shot just
osprey.
looking right at the creek there.
And these pretty much exclusively eat fish. So things like red-tailed hawks that we see all the time, I see a lot of red-tailed hawks in Gresham. They're eating a lot of rodents and things on land, mice, gophers. But the ospreys are pretty much exclusively eating fish. So you'll see them more along rivers and creeks. And they make really huge nests, like this one right here.
Okay, so
Being
that one was
opportunistic.
not shot within a mile of here. I shot that on the 205 in Clackamas.
Yeah, but what I keep learning over and over as I study animals in urban areas is there's just a specific suite of things that they need. And they're used to getting that from natural things, but often they can find it in things that humans have built as well. So that salamander needed a cool, moist place where its predators couldn't get in. It usually used old growth logs, but now it uses cinder block walls. And this osprey just needs a safe place where the predators can't climb up and it can see for far around. It usually used big old dead trees, now it's using a billboard. So as long as we can allow it to continue to live here, it's perfectly happy to do that. Some of their biggest threats is when people put out a lot of rat poison and rodenticide that can make its way up the food chain and really negatively affect these. So that's what I talk about when saying as long as we can allow them to live here, so doing things that don't directly harm them. All right, how about this one? Welcome, come in, we're doing a bird guessing game.
Okay.
Some kind
Is that
of
another
hawk.
hawk?
Yeah, it's a type of hawk. It's a really common one.
Red
I see
tail?
these- Yep, I see these almost every day around here. If you just look up, often I'm walking around like this and I'm just seeing hawks all the time and everyone else is looking like this. I'm like, hey guys, hawk! If you just look up, I bet you'll see one of these every day in Gresham. Oh, Here's a fun video. So where was this?
That's at the cemetery just off Walters Road. This was during the big heat wave that we had.
So what do you think it's doing?
Please take it back.
Yeah, it's taking back. So
Is that a reptile?
Yep, that's a reptile. So it's using the irrigation water that's running off onto the street. So again, it's just finding whatever it can. That's where it can get its bath done. This one you know. So these are actually all over in Gresham too. I've seen probably a dozen in the last year.
Yeah, that was just a couple of weeks ago, right by the creek. It had been strafing the creek for days. I'm like, I want that shot of the eagle coming. Hopefully, the salmon jumping up, the eagle catching the salmon. That's the money shot. But since I know there's
It's coming. It's coming.
So I thought, at least can I get the eagle strafing? And I'll be standing there with the camera and it'll be coming towards me. So this was the next best thing. It was watching for something in the creek. It was watching a riffle, seeing if they could spot a fish, I guess. And
And they'll often nest up in the forests in the East Buttes is where I'll see pairs going around and mating. They mate mid-air. They do this tumbling thing as they're mating in the air. It's very exciting. And then they build a nest up in the trees, and then they're close enough to soar over and eat the fish in the creek as well. All right, how about this one?
Looks like an owl.
Yeah? Owl. I think I heard a specific owl back there.
Great one.
Yeah. This is a huge owl. This thing is like enormous. Very hard to see, but sometimes we do owl surveys where you call out to them and they call back at night.
Oh
yeah?
That's awesome.
oh, that'd be so
That's
nice.
fun, yeah. I gotta do that.
Oh, this guy.
There we go. That's him again.
Do you remember what it was?
Cute owl.
Yeah.
Screech owl.
I knew that the owl was there because the birds all around were making this incredible ruckus. And I went outside and they had jays, robins, sparrows circling this stunned little owl. So it was just, of course, it's a juvenile. It doesn't know exactly what's going on. It just knows not wanted on the voyage.
Because it'll go and eat the baby birds.
Yeah.
He's so cute.
Yeah. How could you eat baby birds? It's a circle of life. Alright, how about this one? Yeah, it's a type of woodpecker. And look at those holes in the tree. I used to see holes like this all the time. Sometimes they're really round holes all the way around a tree, and I assumed it was a person with a drill, and I didn't know what they were doing. No, those are woodpeckers. They're all over the place, and they're really important for making habitat for other species because they can actually go and excavate a tree. Bugs can get in there. It can start to rot. Other animals can go in and nest in there. Does anyone know what type of woodpecker?
Oh, yes.
This is a red-breasted sapsucker.
Oh.
This one. It does. It's the woodpecker that Woody the Woodpecker is fashioned after. This thing is huge.
Yeah. Actually, I think Woody the Woodpecker was fashioned after the ivory
Oh, the ivory
bill.
bill. I think you're right.
Glass.
Which may or may not still be.
Do those have like blue feathers?
No, it actually looks a lot like this. They took some liberty with the colors of Woody Woodpecker. But it looks like Chris. Do we know what kind this is then?
Right, Chris?
Pileated.
Yeah. Pileated woodpecker.
That's the only other one I know.
There you go. Good job. These are really loud. These are thought to be pretty secretive and only in really big forested areas. And then, were you there, Ashlyn, when, I know Mike was on the Springwater Corridor Trail, and there was one just sitting 10 feet from them, and it was sitting on this elderberry branch that was really light, and so it was like hanging down, because it was so heavy for the branch, it was hanging upside down eating elderberries just 10 feet from...
Yeah, I think that's what we were doing our viewer survey.
Yeah.
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, really secretive or hang out right on the trail. Alright, this one. This one you might see even right in downtown Gresham, walking around on the sidewalks.
That one's right on the Springwater Trail.
Is that blue jay?
It's a type of jay, and it's blue. This one's a scrub jay. That's the common blue jay that we have around here. It's the scrub jay. They're pretty loud too. Alright, this one. This is one that was guessed. Yep. This is the Stellar's jay. Does it right out of bird feeder?
Yeah, it's right at bird feeder. It's been, I shot that through the screen. So it's been hatched. This was not a great shot, but it was one of those cases where I thought, whoa, that's what I think it is. I want to catalog that.
This is on the front of my bird book. It's the only way I knew which one it was. Yep, a varied thrush. This is really closely related to a robin. Pretty much the same type of bird, slightly different habitat. These are cool. They have really big beaks for cracking nuts.
Yeah, and they're just coming out now, so.
Sometimes you can see these in big flocks of dozens of them. Yeah, grosbeaks. This little guy, probably see him, you know, like on your table if you're eating outside and they're trying to eat your crumbs from you. So we know what it is. It's so common. We see it every day.
That's not a tapir.
A song sparrow.
It's cute.
It's down great.
Hummingbird.
Yeah.
One just almost flew in my car and I just pulled up behind me.
Oh, really?
It was
Yeah,
like
there's-
it flew right up next to me.
There's a couple that live right in our parking lot here.
Yeah, this red tree.
It was
Yeah.
really cool. I was like, "Jeez."
Well, what color's
Right
your
here.
car?
Huh?
What color's your car?
White.
Oh, okay. I thought if it was red for sure.
Yeah. There's another one. Rufus hummingbird.
Was the other one Anna's?
Yes.
Yeah, the other one's Anna's. That one's Rufus, obviously. Reddish, Rufus.
All right, our last group of animals are the mammals. All right, so raccoons, you guys probably all know. These we actually find down in the stormwater pipes a lot of times. Some of them even set up little nests down there and have their young down there. So these are all over the place.
That's where I shot that one in a stormwater pipe. And that one's eating, that one's got a crawdad in her hands. And she was walking through with her family, and she'll pick up the crawdads and she'll kind of show them by example how to catch the things, crack them, and eat them. Once the raccoons have been through, you'll see the crawdads cracked open, eaten mostly, then the shells left. That's when the other crawdads come in and clean it up.
All right.
Coyote.
Okay.
Yeah. There's actually quite a lot of these in here. They're usually hard to see, but as people start to report when they've seen them here or there, when I've started to look at for scats around in the city, there are coyotes or coyotes on almost every block of the city here and in Portland, like even in downtown Portland. It's pretty amazing.
I think all the chickens people are starting to get in their house.
That could help actually.
I see them like walk around my neighborhood or
Yeah.
like, you know, like talk out loud.
Yeah. They
And,
sound crazy when they start yipping
Yeah.
together.
like hyenas.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
There was a study recently about how important coyotes are for urban bird populations because urban cats, both people's pets and feral cats, can really decimate the songbirds when they go out. They're really efficient hunters. And what some studies have shown is that the slightly larger parks and natural areas where the coyotes spend more time, the cats don't want to hang out there because there's a predator there. And the birds, wherever there's a coyote den set up, the songbirds really start to come back. So they're like this little keystone predator in the urban habitat that allow the cats and the songbirds to coexist. It's a beautiful one. Got a little squirrel here. They're part of our habitat too. We think of them as so common, but
And
they're
then-
part of the food chain.
So that one's drinking right out of the creek.
Little rabbit. Anyone know what kind of
Jackrabbit?
rabbit? This is just a cottontail. Then we also have. Oh, oops! I forgot to cover the thing. I didn't even know that this rabbit lived around here. Until
Yeah.
you
And
had taken a picture.
I
of it
took a
today.
guess that that's a brush rabbit. I compared the two with a lot of books. If we had a rabbit expert here, they
Yeah,
might be able
anyone
to.
know?
Any rabbit? Okay. Well,
What made you say red?
what made me say brush rabbit? The size and the shape of the ears
ears,
and the coloring of the coat.
Right, this little guy, another rodent.
Nutria?
Fever.
None of
Nutria?
those.
Otter.
Yeah, muskrat.
Muskrat.
Muskrat, yeah.
Yeah. The smallest of our aquatic rodents that we have around here.
But the first time when I took that shot, I misidentified it too. I thought it was a nutria. I didn't know we had muskrats. And then I looked again, I looked at books, and I go, oh my gosh, that was a muskrat.
Alright, how about this one?
That looks like the otter.
It's not an otter or a nutria.
Oh, it must be
Beaver?
Yeah, it's a beaver.
It's hard to tell when they're just that.
So these are, I think other than humans, these are the ones that modified their ecosystems around them the most in the entire world, the animal that does, that we know of. Because when they build their dams to impound water, it really changes the whole way that a stream is functioning. And around here, there used to be beavers, a few hundred years ago, on pretty much every single stream everywhere. And that's how all the animals had adapted to live around them for thousands, many years. And then there were pretty much no beavers. And then recently they've been moving back in. And so we've been watching, even since I've been here the last 10 years, there's way more beavers in the urban areas than there were 10 years ago here. And to watch how the streams are changing and how the animals are responding is pretty amazing. In just the 3-mile stretch of Johnson Creek that goes through Gresham, how many beaver dams did you find on the survey? 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're here. They're all over the place. We did a study of temperatures last summer, upstream and downstream of ponds, and all of the human-made ponds were increasing stream temperatures by about 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, which is a lot, which is making the streams too warm for the fish. All of the beaver dams that we studied didn't increase the temperature at all. Because that water's not skimming off the top and going over where it's the hottest. It's slowly seeping through the mud and the sticks and coming from the bottom. And it's also helping that water get back into the sides of the bank, recharge the groundwater, help with hyperrheic flow getting under the rocks. So that was really neat to see that even in our urban system, these dams are creating habitat, slow water habitats, and not increasing the stream temperature.
Is there a concern in a municipality, like with the inundation they cause and the destruction? Do they have relocation programs or anything like that? Because I noticed one down in Arrow Springs.
Yeah, Earl
Right
Springs.
over by the little natural area there, and there was a home right behind it, and it looked like it was kind of getting close to causing problems for that
Yeah,
homeowner. So
it's a
yeah, you
huge.
see how people would see them as kind of a pest, but
Absolutely.
they're obviously very important for the ecosystem.
It's really hard, when we have all of our human infrastructure, we want the stream to be right here. We don't want it to spread or flood or meander at all, which is what the beavers do. And so, we have problems with our bridges and our culverts and when people's houses are close to there. We're lucky in Gresham that we don't have as many houses as close to the creek where it spreads out, so the beavers so far haven't been causing as much of a problem. In terms of relocation, in general, Fish and Wildlife Service doesn't recommend it because they pretty much always just die when you try to relocate them because they've set up a territory and a family group and everything, and when you try to move them somewhere else, they just get eaten immediately because they don't have a dam set up. So there have been a couple of cases in Gresham actually where we've removed beavers and they were just euthanized because that was considered to be the most humane thing. It's not very effective because beavers can walk tens of miles every year to find a new spot. So it's difficult. It's more about trying to design a place that a beaver doesn't want to be. And there's all sorts of beaver deceiver devices that we try as well, where you try to shunt some water from above the dam to below the dam, and it usually works for a while until the beaver figures it out. So
Yeah, it seems like the only way is to wreck their dam and just keep them busy, keep them rebuilding or something.
I personally, with my own hands, tore down a beaver
They're
dam,
hard.
which was really sad for me. And found all sorts of animals living inside of it, which was really cool. And within a week, the whole dam was back up again. They can build really
Their
fast.
construction techniques are pretty incredible too.
Yeah,
So more sophisticated than you think.
they're very sophisticated. The way they weave
Weave
branches,
it.
twigs, mud, rock together.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
But the good thing about this beaver is, this beaver doesn't build a dam. That beaver lives in the bank, like right in a hole. It's dug a hole, it's got a den underneath a stand of oak trees, so it doesn't even need a dam. There's about 6 to 8 feet of water in the creek
There's
right
deep enough
there.
water
So
there.
it just comes out, it goes back
There's enough
in.
hunting spaces.
Yeah,
And these are herbivores. They just eat plants. Yeah.
Territorial spaces.
Exactly. Yep. And they don't live in the dams. The dams are just to make the water deep enough for them to go into the bank. They need to have an underwater entrance to their burrow so that predators can't follow them. So the dam is not a living structure. Sometimes they build a lodge to live in the bank, but sometimes they just dig right in the bank if it's big enough. There's another one. You can almost see its tail out there. Here's the dam that used to be at Main City Park. They haven't rebuilt it in the last 2 years, but for many years there was a huge dam that you could see just right from the bridge. So that's what their den hole looks like when they're not maintaining it anymore, when they're not flooding it to try to get in. So it's a little hole. You can look for those in the summer. You might find old dens. This is awesome, Tiller.
This I just, I got a webcam, one of those trail cams, and I set it up. So I got a picture of beaver, then it showed
We have it on the
coyote.
next.
Oh, we have it on the next slide, okay. So anyway, I went to see what the animals were all looking at, and there was all this spray that smelled really strong right on the grass.
And we have it in a bottle over here on our table, so you
Yeah,
should
so you
smell it
can
on your
smell
way
it.
out.
Oh, I thought it was refreshments.
Yeah. Everything except the bottom.
So this is castoreum or castor oil. It comes out of their anal gland. So these are the trail cam photos.
Yeah, the first is beaver, it was doing something, then the coyote comes, then the raccoon comes, and then another beaver. I don't know if it's the same beaver or another one came by to smell that one area.
So this is all within a couple hours one night. All this is going on right in your front yard.
Yeah.
Right? She'd have no idea she's sleeping. Okay, so here's an awesome video. Oh, I don't know if we have sound, which is too bad. I'll impersonate the sound.
So this is when we first moved in, and there was a little island in the creek of canary grass. When I came out, this is just with a little Nikon AW100, like a pocket camera. I wanted to see if I could get a shot of the beaver. Very casually got off that little island, started swimming away, not too fast. And I wasn't prepared for this. It turned around.
You can see it smelling if you look closely. Its little nostrils go in and out.
And I thought, okay, it sees me, now it's going to go away. And then it starts coming back towards me.
They have a new neighbor.
Yikes, that's when the camera goes like that, I just, wah! Ran away. Those things are big, they're scary.
Really loud. The tail is like this big, and it just. And what was it telling you?
Get out,
Yeah.
my land. Just like with the castoreum, it comes, is it you thought you paid a mortgage and that you own this house? Nah. This is who owns it.
All right, now
Finally.
this one. Kind of looks like a long beaver, right? But not related closely at all.
Is it spiraling?
Otter.
Yeah, this is the otter. So this is a river otter. These are right in Johnson Creek. This is one that almost anyone I talk to has no idea that these are here.
And
I only knew that because you told me the other day they were here.
That's the shot where, I first told people I had seen otters in the creek and they said, oh, it'd be so nice if you got a shot, so.
Look how long and sleek they are. They eat fish as well.
There's a whole family of
Yeah,
them.
they're not just passing through either. This is where they raise their young. This is where they live. And I'll warn you, it's 7 o'clock now in case anyone needs to leave. We have probably about 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 minutes left. Anyone have any idea what this is? This is one we had no idea even lived in the city before these pictures.
Looks like a weasel.
It is. It's in the weasel family.
People used to make fancy coats out of them. Yeah, this is a mink. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
The great thing about doing stuff like this is going around showing the photographs and talking about it with people. I was talking with someone at the Watershed Wide event, and he said, yeah, I used to play baseball down at Main City Park, and I had a traumatic experience with a weasel as a kid. I was there, and we were watching this little bunny rabbit, and a weasel came out, jumped on its back, bit it, and dragged it off.
And I was at Caz's house for lunch a couple weeks ago, and we were just standing in her yard talking, and there was a restoration crew working right across the creek. They were cutting down blackberries, so they're over there with their, their gas-powered, weed-eating machines. And I see a mink run out of the bank and run right by the feet of one of these people within a couple of feet. And the person had no idea that it was there because they're doing this and it was under the blackberry. So I'd never seen a mink before, so they're all around and they're really hard to ever see unless you happen to be in the right place at the right time. There's another one.
The mink eat fish, right? Crawfish.
I think so.
I think they can eat all sorts of stuff. Yeah, because they swim too. These were wet. They came out.
That's the same
But then
one.
they'll also eat rabbits and mice and birds.
That's just those were taken this April last month.
Very weaselly. All right, how about this one?
Deer.
Yeah, it's a type of deer.
That's a
A black-tailed. We have a lot of black-tailed around here. This is on Hogan Trail. Another one. This is really interesting. What do you think it's doing?
Okay.
Yeah, it's going pee. Why would it be doing that in the creek?
Sense.
Yeah, exactly. This is something that you've seen several times.
Yeah, saw it a couple times. Someone said, "Oh yeah, really? I gotta get it on camera once again." You know,
So
nobody believes that you're just talking. Yeah, sure, you were playing baseball and a weasel jumped on the back of a rabbit, but did you get a picture of it?
So yeah, they're still displaying their natural behaviors of they have to avoid predators. They don't want a coyote following them back to where their fawn is lying, so they hide their scent. It's a beautiful one.
Yeah, that's a whitetail.
And this is the last of the animals. It's a cool video that's taken right from your balcony.
Yeah.
So this is her yard. Oops.
You are just right on the tree.
Yeah.
Yes, in the floodplain.
There's like one of
The house is
Yeah.
was a barn built in 1908.
So these deer, I mean, when I look at this, whenever I see an animal, actually, especially in an urban area, I always try to think, what is this animal thinking? Especially when you make eye contact with an animal, what's going through this animal's mind? And I think I actually have a pretty good idea a lot of the time. They're probably wondering, what's our next move? These deer look curious, cautious. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna be cool and let them walk by? Are we gonna shoot them or chase after them? Are we gonna, what is it that we're doing? These guys are looking around, they're nibbling a little bit, they're hanging out. Looks like these are probably 3 young brothers that are hanging out together before they go off on their own. And Caz has allowed them to wander through her yard and browse on her plants. And by doing that, these deer and her can both share the same space. So when she moves in, she doesn't push them out, and they allow her to be there. So by doing a few things, all of these animals that we've seen today are able to live alongside us as long as we let them do that. Just going to talk about a couple fun things that you can do. This was a fun planting event that we had on Johnson Creek this spring. One thing, if you haven't heard about the Backyard Habitat Certification Program that the Audubon Society and Columbia Land Trust does, they send someone over to look at your yard and help you figure out how you could improve habitat in your yard. And then they help you do that and give you a sign. It would usually cost $35 for that person to come. The city of Gresham has decided this is important to us, so if you go to our website, we waive that fee for you. So there's some flyers out there if you want to check that out, tell people about it. We have a bunch of people participating in it. We actually had a whole neighborhood get certified as a backyard habitat certified neighborhood because so many neighbors got together. Another big thing you can do is one of the biggest things that we do in a city that impacts all this wildlife is what goes into those storm drains and what impacts the runoff. So when I said at the beginning, people are like, okay, I don't really care if I wash my car and the soap goes down there or it's leaking oil or I throw my cigarette butts because these streams are already dead, right? So from what I've shown you today, are these streams dead? No, look at this. They're amazingly alive. We have so much amazing wildlife that we're so fortunate to have right here in the city. So when you throw that cigarette butt down the drain, one of these animals is going to run into it, maybe many of these animals, until one of them eats it and gets sick from it. So just remembering, our mantra always is only rain down the storm drain. Everything that goes down there gets into the stream and affects something downstream. So a lot of people simply don't know that that's where the storm drains go. So now that you guys know, you can go tell other people. And the big things that the city's doing that you're going to start to see all around, you probably already are, is building what we call green stormwater infrastructure, or rain gardens, or stormwater ponds. And so when that water runs off, here's a bunch of rain on a road, all sorts of toxins coming off of these cars, swimming down the gutter, and instead of going into the storm drain and going straight into the creek, this is water coming off of a roof, instead of going straight into the creek, it's diverted into this mini little wetland that the city has created and maintains. And there have been a lot of studies shown that just taking that pollution and running it through some soil, all the microbes that live in that soil, make it non-toxic to most of the things that live in the creek. So you'll start to see these all over the place. Sometimes people get upset because there's weeds in them or you don't want to park next to them or anything. But now that you know how important they are to all of the animals that live in the watershed, you can get really excited about these rain gardens. And then, if you want to get involved, the city is doing all sorts of things. Obviously, you cannot read all of these. I'll leave this up, and we have a flyer in the back that you can pick up. These are all sorts of events that we're doing. They're places to learn about the plants and animals that live here. There are places to learn how to build your own rain garden, places to plant plants themselves. There's celebrations of just everything that lives here. We found that that's one of the most important things, is if we sit around saying, oh, the environment is terrible, it's all polluted, it's awful, no one really wants to do anything for it. But when we take time and celebrate, you know what, there's a lot of amazing life here. Let's think about that and appreciate it, and go out and look at it. Then there's a lot more that can go towards making it even better for them. So check that out, and we'll be around. Come smell the castoreum in the bottle.
Yeah, I dare you.
All right, and ask us questions.